This is a war, and this is your fate. We are the face of your new police state. We are the law.
Welcome to the Charles Carroll Society. I am your host, the self-appointed bard of the American Redoubt. I wanted to go over a very interesting article that I think is incredibly important for patriots and people who care about individual liberty and conservative Christianity all over the world to at least consider what this author said. The article was published on the 6th of April 2019 in the American Thinker by an author that goes by the name E.M. Cadwalder. I don't know if E.M. Cadwalder is a real person. I've done a little research and tried to read other articles by this guy, and I can't find many articles about him. But this article, I do see that many of his articles are written as you would expect a conservative to write. Although the guy says he was an atheist previously, he doesn't tell us what he is now. So this guy may be a pen name for someone, I don't know. But I can't find any photos of him. The guy does a little poetry. But he wrote a great article that I want to, if with your permission, go over in detail because I think it's just that important. The article on April the 6th was titled "The Never-Ending Threat of Civil War." So he writes a lot of truth in this article, and I think it's truth that, like I said, patriots from South Africa to America to New Zealand to Australia should consider. He said, one of the things he says is, we and the left are now two nations, and of course he's writing this all toward Americans, and so he's talking about it from an American's perspective. But I wonder, I believe that this may have applicability all over the world. He says, we and the left are now two nations within one country. This is undeniable. We are now so different that we cannot even agree on what a country is or the merits of a country having a border. The number of people who will say, I just don't care about politics dwindles. It is still possible to hate both sides in this argument, but it is getting harder to be indifferent and still be breathing. How many people can just take or leave infanticide? How many people are entirely flexible about the idea of the government having the authority over anything and everything, to experimenting with our fundamental demographics, or to giving up fossil fuels cold turkey? So he's, of course, hit on a deep truth that we talk about often, which is, I guess before you wonder if there's going to be a civil war, which I think is not the right question, what I think is the right question is, are there more than one people? Are we two people stuck in one nation? Each group of people have their own identity, their own history, their own culture, their own norms that they have? Does that exist? If that exists, do you see a way peacefully for those two people, or in some cases more than two people, to peacefully work out their differences so that you come down to and stay in one nation where both people can express themselves? You know, it's one thing to say the Rainbow Nation of South Africa, for example, where you talk about, here's our ideas, we all want to live together. But when you get to the point where one side does not believe in private property rights, when one side does not believe in individual rights to own firearms, when one side actually just blatantly talks about the other side being evil, I don't see how, well, you tell me how you can make peace with such between two people. And here in America, it's the same way. These people now have said that, they've always said, oh, we just want gun regulation. But now they're talking about, yeah, we're coming for your guns. We want to disarm you. And we dare you to make a stink. That's what they say. They say that we don't believe in freedom of speech anymore. No, we want to implement hate laws, and they're doing it through corporatism. Right now, I'm going to put this video out on YouTube, but Maybe you'll see it, maybe you don't, because they're using terms of service to implement their hate speech laws, which are actually unconstitutional in America. But hey, it's YouTube, it's his private property. That's why you got to follow me on my own blog called Charles Carroll Society. Make sure you subscribe over there. He talks about it again from another article, which I think is, he continues in his article, which I think is fascinating. He says, while I personally would dance an Irish reel to see a nationwide roundup of the errant Democratic council persons for the crimes of declaring their cities exempt from federal immigration law, I know that this would be a revolutionary detonator to the left. So in other words, the left has said we're going to throw open the borders of the United States, and if you try to stop us, we're going to start killing people. There's a threat of political violence. He continues, many leftists would certainly decide to pursue their ends by any means necessary. Some of them have done so already. Just ask Steve Scalise. We have our breaking point, and they have theirs. Our two nations hang suspended over a war's abyss, kept in midair temporarily by the tug of war of pundits, politicians, and overpaid attorneys. I'm sorry to say, does that not explain the situation in South Africa? Right now, you have people suing this and that group of people, and the other group of people suing and suing that group of people, and people are petitioning the Constitutional Court of this and Constitutional Court of that. But in the end of the day, when whichever side decides that the law is no longer going to be addressable, what happens then? What happens then? And do you see any way for the law to square this round peg, to make something whole out of these two incredibly divergent thoughts? One divergent thought being that there is such a thing as private property, and another divergent thought saying there's not. This guy continues in his piece. The people who are eager for a civil war are fools. They don't understand the catastrophe they're begging for. But the people who believe that a civil war is now a real possibility are neither fools nor wild-eyed alarmists. Moreover, the people who believe that, grim though the prospects may be, war might be the lesser of two evils, have a daily strengthening case. The left has shown itself to be dedicated to the destruction of Western civilization itself. We have not been faced with such an existential threat since the European armies threw off the Turks back in Vienna in 1529. The fascists of the mid-20th century, for all their loathsome policies, were not the kind of threat to the very fabric of our societies that we face now. Bad as they were, the fascists, they did not seek the destruction of Europeans as a people or of European culture as a living, breathing thing. Progressivism does. What could be more worthy, if you will forgive the word, of resistance? I think that says a lot. I think that says a lot about where we're at. And it's a good point. The communists probably did want to annihilate capitalist and Western civilization in that way. The Turks obviously wanted to annihilate Christianity in their own way, but progressives seem to want to annihilate it all. Individual liberty, Christianity, and Western civilization itself. And I think more and more people, like I said, I don't know if this guy is writing under a pen name. More and more of these people are beginning to understand how far down this rabbit hole we are. So this guy continues in his piece. We conservatives have let this ideological cancer metastasize for far too long, for its excision to cut it out to be simple or painless. For too long, we have been patient with outrages we should have fought to reverse. We have let our opponents succeed in incrementally from us for decades. We have been tolerant and patient. In our tolerance and patience, we have given up civil society, our political representation, our freedoms one by one. Our maladies won't be fixed by delicate instruments now, half-heartedly performed by yet another generation of narcissistic government planners and invisible elite bureaucrats. Intellectuals like George Will and think tanks like the Heritage Foundation have done us little good. Our condition demands a radical, unflinching surgery if we as a nation are to survive. Either the cancer wins and kills us all, or we defeat it and we accept the scars. Let us not pretend that they would not be hideous scars, and let us not pretend it would not be a deeply barbarous and bitter surgery. I think this is extremely accurate. And it's interesting to have with the concept that to think how far we have let this go by people kind of moving around and trimming at the edges and talking. If you don't see a likely path to peaceful coexistence, then you must prepare for the opposite. And I would add that if you still think that there is a peaceful path to coexistence, if you believe that there's a peaceful path to coexistence, I would be highly suspicious of that. When talking to people from South Africa or in America, there's this guy who created, it's just a kind of a meme, but I think it sums up where we're at. And I really think what I'm about to say is the absolute truth. And everyone in the sound of my voice who cares about individual liberty, Orthodox Christianity, and Western civilization, and maintaining it and promoting it and growing it, need to understand these 5 rules. Rule number 1, no one is coming to save you. Rule number 2, everything is your responsibility. Rule number 3, save who needs to be saved. Rule number 4, kill who needs to be killed. Rule number 5, always be working. Viva Cristo Rey, Viva Cristo Rey, Viva Cristo Rey y the Virgin of Guadalupe.